Brett Bean. BrettBean.com.
Hey everybody, Brett Bean here, and for the second video what we're going to do is break down the next step. So we've done sketches and thumbnails, and now we're going to start to clean up and sort of put all of our ideas into like one coherent thing. So in this video it's going to be all of that. It's making that Frankenstein monster version of putting it all the pieces that we kind of liked in our design and putting them into one that we can visually communicate to either other people or ourselves for the next stage of 3 and 4. So here we go. Okay, so we're back in Sketchbook Pro. I've sort of chosen my first guy that I liked, my initial response, and I start sketching out, thinking about all the other stuff I wanted to add that I kind of liked in those other designs. So one, I liked the way the character was positioned in one of the earlier renditions, so I wanted a little bit more of that. So I'm adding in a little bit of that feeling. Again, just quick sketching, doing the outlines. For the most part, that's primarily what I do now. When I started out, I had all these different methods of doing it. This one speaks truest to me. Especially as I go further into my comic book career, I do the outline drawing style way more than thumbnail full body sort of takes. So I'm adding in the tail from the other one, just sort of bringing in all the ideas together. You can see even though this is digital, you can see my cursor go over a few times where I'm going to draw like it's still real world media. I actually don't see that until I look here. But I can see that I go over it a couple times before I make my mark. So this is me putting in some contour lines and just sort of reminding myself that this is the way this arm is going to bend and turn. And that's where those sort of like those curves come in, where the nails are going to be. Think about your busy to simple. So I know that in my mind's eye I want to have a little bit more busy near the arms and then give the eye a break. Like if I had done, instead of those being contour lines and just being stripe lines, I do believe for myself, everybody is a different designer, so everybody's going to think differently. But for me as a design sense, I go, oh, it's going to be too busy for what I enjoy. So here I kind of wanted to scoot his body down a little bit more, kind of change it from that longer aspect to a little bit short and squattier. I also think it makes him a little bit more endearing when I think of like a little squattier, bigger hands, big eyes, big dopey eyes. So I like the horns of the other one a little bit more. I thought it matched the personality I was going for this character, and I like the broken horn on the other one. So here I sort of am putting in the ears, and then I don't really like the cut in the ear. I wanted to offset that from the broken horn. So if this character were to be in 3D or be, in motion and everything, I wanted the balanced a little bit more to like maybe his other half had the cut in the ear. And that's just a balancing thing. That's just part of one of those things that makes the designer who I am versus somebody else. Those little things. There's no right or wrong in a lot of this, even though a lot of people talk about being right and wrong. It's being right for a project and maybe being wrong for a project if you don't get the point across. But there's no real right or wrong in art. So to me, it's just personal design sense and choice, and the choices that I would make versus somebody else. So for me, I want that sort of imperfect balance where both sides will have something, but it's not the same thing. I don't like symmetrics. I like I don't like primitive geometric shapes. I like organic stuff. So I'll always gravitate towards that sort of feel. And so this is that busy to simple of like how much hair versus how much skin to show. And then how, in my mind's eye, I'm also thinking like, how do I keep this not being a satyr, but at the same time, it's kind of a satyr, except for, because satyr has 90% of the same stuff that a demon would have, just a longer tail and different horns and stuff, but it's all kind of placed in there. So it's trying to think of the next stage of colors, but then also, what's going to be visually interesting and keep it in the spectrum of character design and our keywords, right? We're still working off of demon with a heart of gold, or that sort of idea of playing off of the trope of evil demon, but absolutely not evil demon. And I started to think about, you can kind of see the triangle in the bottom part of the tail. I started thinking, well, what if he grew his hair out longer to hide his devil tail? So he grew it out on purpose because he doesn't like being a demon. He doesn't like being seen as a demon because he doesn't have that in his heart. So he sort of tries to trick other creatures, or whether there be other people. So again, because there's no story there, we're starting from a blank. My mind searches for reason for a character to exist. If you have a reason for your character to exist, it will be more believable. Even in an unbelievable setting, we as humans, we will gravitate towards things that we kind of understand and know. And I think people can understand like being in a situation where you're supposed to be this, but you don't feel it in your heart. You are different than what people think you are. And how that translates, in clothing or attitude or all these other things sort of impact your character. So even when I don't have a story in front of me, like if this was for a client, I would have more of a story and a setting and an understanding. But since we're kind of making it up from scratch, I also have to make up the story from scratch. But I create story in there, so I have more of a reason of what I'm drawing and why. So here, this is basically kind of like I would say an old Disney animator trick. You can see that I'm going over my softer lines just harder and saying these are the lines I've decided on, for the next stage. The next stage is going to be inking. If you were to do just a fully painted, rendered style, you could avoid video 3. But the way that I'm going to design this character is in these 4 steps. I find it very easy for clients to understand and get behind before a final painting, stuff like that anyway. So I'm going to do it in these 4 stages. But you can see that I'm bouncing around the image, and I'm just trying to find the balance of darks and lights and the balance of busy to simple. And then I start thinking about story elements, and I go, okay, well, there's going to be humans or something in this world. So maybe what he does is he has like a little sack that he carries stuff around in, and I can come up with a storyline or something like that later with that. But I wanted a little bit more of a visual, like he's part of something bigger. He's not just a demon walking around in hell. He's a demon in a universe, in something that has the ability to create and sow and collect and all these things. And then I started to add some little tweaks to his tail. And I thought, well, maybe he can't grow that. Maybe that's hair that he has plucked and stuck on, like with tape or bandage. And again, that's for visual language of making it feel different. Because if I just look at him and I go, he's all red and he's going to be a demon, there's not a lot of variation. So I needed a little bit of something in there just to rebalance, saying, oh, there's some little spots of color. Here's a different spot of texture that's different than his tail, his body, his hair, because it was getting a little bit overwhelming with one type of design. So that's the design decision of why I added a sack, and that idea of the hair maybe being plucked out from his back or his head, and then he sort of bandages it up to hide his tail. So I had more of a story of like, oh no, this is very much on purpose. It's not just long hair. He does this on purpose to fool other creatures in the world. And when I have a design that I like, I sort of do a couple of quick renditions of facial expressions just to see if, one, that the design holds water and can still maintain some sort of like fun squash and stretch and enjoyability as a design. Again, it's all for storytelling, and again, I am describing this to myself because I'm making it up for the first time. So I'm figuring it out as I go. I have to explain to myself what it is I'm designing. And a lot of these quick facial designs are for that. And this is where I speed things up. Everything else was at 1-to-1 ratio, and this is 10 times the speed. But again, this is me just trying to find that character and see if that character still works. So the character sort of holds up, so I'm just trying to check out my overall silhouette to make sure, and then you'll notice that I changed the hands to be a little bit longer and thinner. I thought it would look better in that silhouette. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to go check out the book Draw. Brett Bean Breaks Down the Art of Drawing by 3D Total and Brett Bean. Thanks. Brett Bean! BrettBean.com!